Hey guys, it's Jason Snavely, certified wildlife biologist and founder and president of Drop-Tine Wildlife Consulting, the Drop-Tine Seed Company, and of course, Drop-Tine Podcast. Guys, I've 17.
All right, I'm excited to come back. It's been a while, I know. We're going to do a new series thanks to a bunch of really great listeners who came up with the idea. I'm going to get back to my roots. You know, when I started the podcast, if you go back to one of the original podcasts, you'll hear me talk about how I just enjoy having conversations with customers, prospective customers, clients. And I thought, man, it would be really cool if everybody could join in and hear some of these conversations. So on a daily basis, as I talk to customers and, seed customers, consulting clients all over the country, I'm thinking to myself, man, I keep repeating myself over and over again, and I enjoy it. But it would be really cool to just sit down and record some of these conversations. So I'm going to do a new series. These do not have to be full featured length podcasts, but it's my podcast. And between me and my guest, we'll decide how long it goes. So it may be a 10-minute conversation. It may be a 30-minute conversation. Who knows? It may go over that. Hopefully not. If you're on your way to work, maybe you can sneak this in or mowing the grass or whatever you're doing. But this is kind of a from the field. I'm not in the field, but we're going to the field, talking to a specific customer of the seed company, and this can and will expand over time into other management practices. But for now, I'm gonna go to the seed questions, especially soil health, regenerative food plotting, and that niche. So today we're kind of in Pennsylvania / New York to start this segment off. I've got Mr. Zach Weaver. Zach, you there?
Yes, I am here.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, man. You were actually, the reason I wanted to start with you, we've been talking about this for months. You and I had a conversation. I was like, man, Zach, I should have recorded this. This was good stuff.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. You even said something afterwards, like we should have recorded that one for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you were, well, first of all, did I prepare you with questions for today? Did I give you any clues or hints?
No, not at all.
Now, did I pay you to be on here?
No, sir.
No, good deal. and I don't have sponsors, ads. I don't take money from anybody. I'm not buyable or bought offable. That's a word. Yep. And I will throw this out. Interestingly, this is just chance. Zach and his family own Wasp, Montana Decoys, and Tracked Optics. Three badass companies. I'm going to shout out Wasp a lot. I don't get free broadheads from Zach. I actually had used the Wasp sharpshooter. Zach, I did warn you I'd talk about this because I love the broadhead.
Yep.
Those of you know, or many of you know, that I write the Whitetails column for Peterson's Bow Hunting. So we get broadheads all the time, and I fell for all the sexy mechanicals and then just lost interest in them the minute I shot a Wasp sharpshooter. So at any rate, man, I didn't want to, I know you're not on this to throw a commercial out there, but I wanted to bring it up because the Wasp sharpshooter is, in my opinion, the best and greatest broadhead of all time. And I remember telling you, if you ever get rid of that broadhead, I'm going to kill you. So what did you do? What's going on with the Wasp?
Well, I mean, growing, doing things, especially that sharpshooter that you love so much, it's been doing so well. Of course, we've expanded that line. Last year, we came out with a 150 grain version of it. For those guys looking for FOC, we started getting a little heat that we didn't go heavy enough. So actually this year we just came out with a 200 grain. Now we're touching on a little bit of the traditional shooters. We're looking, a lot of crossbow guys are loving it for these higher speed, these ones that are touching 500 feet per second now.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense. And we just toughen it up a little bit, change the materials up, made it, I think the one you're shooting is 100 grain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an aluminum ferrule, and we toughen them up by adding steel to them, making steel ferrules, thickening up the blades a little bit as we beef up the weight on it, but try not to go too much bigger in size. Still stay short, compact, just a nice cutting head.
Yeah. Yeah, I first ran into it. I know this isn't all about me and talking about my broadheads, but I turned it into that. But I first turned to it when a former pro shooter for Hoyt and all those guys, he'd been through all of them, said to me, I couldn't tune a couple broadheads I was shooting exactly how he wanted. They were about good enough for me, but he was like, put this on there, and he screwed it on, and I was like, holy cow, it's like a field point. And he's, I know a lot of guys are like, listen, I'm going to aim small, miss small, but if I miss a little bit, the deer moves a little bit, man, I want to have a serious broadhead on that arrow. And I'm just like, you know what? I want to fine tune and take care of any issues up front and put it in the right spot. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So the sharpshooter it's a good head. I love it.
Yeah, that's a great head for us.
Good deal. Well, thanks for building those. And I know you're in the Montana decoys as well and tracked optics. I don't know if you want to say anything about that real quick for the listeners.
I mean, honestly, the experience you have with the sharpshooter and the wasp is great. The Montana decoys, the silhouette decoys, they're fantastic. And we're starting to expand that into some 3D decoys. We've done it with turkeys, and we're starting to play around with some other stuff that hopefully in the next 3 to 6 months, we're releasing some other products that are more in the 3D realm, but still collapsible, compact.
Good.
So those things are growing real well for us, and track optics, growing like crazy, exceeding our expectations every quarter. It's a direct to consumer, optics, rifle scopes, binoculars, spotting scopes brand, that we sell right here outside of, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
We do everything here, and we're kind of a small company that's just providing a great service, great product. We're competing with the European optics all the time, just at a much better price.
Good deal. All right. Why are you on? Well, first of all, where's your place? Where, when, why? Do you maybe go over just a real brief, are you into the regenerative soil health that everybody seems to be kind of piling on and getting confused about, or are you?
Yeah. So our cabin and where we do, all our hunting, all our management, wildlife management is in Steuben County, New York, just over the border of Pennsylvania, New York. We're literally 2.5 miles. A lot of times when we're up there, and my wife's a runner and she's running into Pennsylvania all the time. Yeah. So we're up there. My parents bought that place in 99, and we've been there ever since. And we started with just a 35-acre parcel, all timber, and that grew. Actually right away. We purchased another 15 acres of pasture ground, field ground that we converted some of it into food plots, left some of it into like old field, old pasture ground, and really, we first started there. Man, it was brown down. We grew up in Pennsylvania where 3-inch spike year after it. That's a good one. Mm-hmm. But we've just over the years we've added property to it, and we've just totally changed our mindset. Probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, we just was like, wow, we're still chasing spikes, and we're seeing better deer. Let's just start this whole management process. Mm-hmm. So we've grown to, anybody that's a seasoned hunter, we're trying to shoot 8-point or better. And there's the ones that most of us are looking for age structure now. We've taken that step where we're looking for 4.5-year-olds. It's still hard for quite a few of them to be able to do that. And we're able to do that with, in conjunction with, a lot of our neighbors that it's really paid off. Mm-hmm. So we've grown our property from 35 acres to 400 acres, just a little over 400 acres, actually. We have, I think 27 acres tillable, whether it be food plot or fields that we manage.
Zach, you mean drillable? Yeah.
Drillable, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, that's much better. So we have gone down the regen road, rabbit hole, and a lot of that's because of listening to your podcast and things like that. And you and I've had conversations, and I know probably a pain in the butt where I shoot just one question to you and try to get an answer on something that's going on. Yeah, I'm sure. That's okay. I don't mind being a pain in the butt when I'm getting good answers. But yeah, so last year was our first full year of the regen, and we didn't bite it all off at once. We took some of our major fields that tend to have the most deer activity on it, a little bit easier to get to, a little bit easier to manage. Our little food plots in the woods, we did not change over all of them. A couple of them we did, but we really tackled our 5-acre food plots, our 3-acre, so the big ones we can get to. And we went down that road, and with a lot of help from you.
So, all right, I'm going to back up just a little bit.
Yep.
That's good stuff. I'm just curious.
Uh-huh.
I've recently had a couple of articles from more, when I say popular magazines, writers talk about popular magazines versus like peer reviewed. So popular magazines are stuff you find on the shelves in stores. It doesn't mean that they're popular like people in high school. It just means that it's common, reading material that is perhaps not read by anybody for accuracy and truth, etc. But it's good entertainment, right? So I've noticed a lot more people. When I was on Mark Kenyon's podcast, I don't know, a few years ago, talking about the 3 or 4 years of experience in soil health that we had at that time, I invited everybody else, especially my competitors. I know you guys compete viciously with people, and you outcompete them. And I invited them. I was like, man, I said to Mark, I said, I really hope everybody else comes to this space. I don't think they will, considering some of them have e-newsletters, with the name like Turning Ground or I forget, Digging It Up. Or, I mean, they're into all of the principles that go completely counterproductive to soil health and regenerative anything. But some of them have started to come this way, and it's exciting, but some of them are, they're not innovating, and they're missing the point. So I just want to back up a minute and talk about this whole regen thing. What is it that you noticed? Why? Why did you decide to go that route? And then when you say we went down that regen rabbit hole, what is regen to you?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we turned part of our farm over to Regen Ag, and a lot of it was listening to podcasts, and we were losing topsoil, and it was becoming evident when we'd go to till up ground, whether we rototilled it, we'd turn it with a chisel plow or whatever we were doing. We were turning up rocks left and right, and we're in rocky soil as it is.
Yep.
And every year we're picking rocks. I get my kids out there, and my neighbors, and everybody's out there. We're picking up rocks, throwing them in the trailer, dump bed, getting rid of it, that whole 9 yards, and using landscape rakes, using everything we can to try to eliminate rocks. And just starting to notice that, crops we used to have great clover patches. We used to have great brassica patches and plots, but they were just all starting to get shorter, get smaller. Partly our deer population was going up, so they were eating it off faster. But looking at our cages, like they're just not looking as healthy, just not looking as good. So it was just kind of one of those things. Like, we need to do something different. We need to make a change. We're tired of bouncing around the tractor across the field.
Yeah.
Can we start doing something different?
Okay. So how did you start? What was the start?
Well,
in your mind.
So the start really was we listened to your podcast. We bought Gabe Brown's book, listened to that. I don't know how many times back and forth driving 3 hours to the cabin. You can listen to it in every trip. And we're listening to that, like, okay, and picking up little things and making notes. And that's when we just kind of decided, like, we've got to do something different. Let's do it. So we went out, we bought a 6-foot no-till drill. We went out, we bought a roll crimper, and really just decided, like, okay, this is how we're going to start. We already had a lot of the other equipment. We already had the tractors and things like that, the brush hogs and the mowers. So we just basically set 5 of our big plots out, which covers probably 2/3 of our food plots total, and said these are going to be the ones we're going to do it on. And really, we may have jumped the gun a little bit, not understanding totally everything, and we've been learning along the way and reaching out and asking questions the whole time.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in right there. So am I. We all are, right?
Sure.
So I say this a million times a day when somebody says, well, I'm following so-and-so system or the Buffalo system or your system. And I'm the first one to say it is not Jason Snavely's system. It's nature's system. Right. So if you're watching YouTube for pure entertainment, And just to get the wheels spinning, great, right? I had a guy yesterday say, everybody who calls me is like, I know you don't like Facebook. I know you don't like YouTube. I don't, for a lot of reasons, because people forget how to talk to one another. I like to pick up the phone and call somebody. I could care less about showing the world on Facebook. I want to talk to the guy who's been there, done that, because it's going to get me over the learning curve a lot quicker.
Yep.
So when you talk about making mistakes, that's the process. As human beings, we have this pathological desire to control everything. If you don't believe me, watch the news. And in nature, if you've ever been staring down a white-tailed doe, or any whitetail for that matter, at full draw or in the most comfortable, awkward position in your stand, and he or she's in no hurry to go on, but stand there and stare at you and stomp and blow, that's the epitome of nature. I'm in no hurry. I don't have a schedule like you. I'm not cold. I'm at home. I'm perfectly comfortable. I'll stand here and stare at you all day until you move or do whatever you do to tip me off. So I just want to that's one of the main points that I try to get across to everybody is, go screw up, make mistakes. Don't overanalyze everything. Just do it. But after you do it, sit back and reassess it and say, okay, did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish? And I ask people that all the time. Did you accomplish your goals? And they're like, I don't even know what my goals were. Well, okay, that's a problem, right? Because if you don't know where you're going, you're going to pretty much get nowhere. Yeah. So, all right, I just wanted to jump in because that's something that comes up over and over where they're like, or somebody will say, I'm not really good at the regenerative soil health stuff like you. And that's just not true. Nobody invented it. Nobody can trademark the term buffalo system. Nobody can trademark regenerative agriculture. We're just farming in nature and trying to mimic nature as much as possible. And then I get the purists who are like, yeah, but these species you're planting are not native. I get it. But you know what they do? They help bring the natives out of the latent seed bank. And if you don't believe me, go do it, and you'll figure that out. So, sorry, I just wanted to inject that.
No, and believe me, our trip down the regenerative ag has come at a lot of troubles and problems that we've had to cross. And I've hit you up quite a few times about different things where just learning curves with the roll crimper. Yeah, I know that was a big one. Is like, I cannot get this whatever. I didn't even know what it was, and you right away, I sent you a picture like, I can't get this to roll crimp. And right away you were like, well, it's ragweed. It's in a juvenile stage. It's not going to crimp.
And that's a pretty common thing that people, they hear okay, I can use the roller crimper. And this is where sometimes it's not what you don't know that hurts you. It's what you don't know that ain't so that hurts you.
Right. Yep.
So I'm sitting here looking at a magazine article, I think it's Gamekeepers, where the guy has been a conventional knucklehead for years, and we've all been there. I was there, but the guy has been in knockdown, drag-out arguments and was part of the crew who laughed on Facebook when we said this is what we're going to do. They called it organic. It's not organic. It's far better. But they're talking about using the roller crimper and acting like it can crimp terminate every plant on your property, and that's just not true.
Yeah, no, and that's what we found out. And right away you said you're going to have to mow that one off to get it down so we can replant our summer reload, or fall reload. I'm not even sure which one it was anymore. But so there's definitely been problems, and just from the start, just setting up the equipment, trying to figure out that, and that was one of my best ones when I asked you, hey, can I get a cheat sheet for setting up the drill? And the email or text you sent me with all those things, but you had your little disclaimer in there. I gave
you the disclaimer. I made that for clients, consulting clients who pay for consulting. They'd never know how to calibrate. I'm like, listen, here, I'm going to give you this. And a couple of them were like, hey, dude, that just looks thin. That's not exactly right. And I'd be like, well, listen, every unit's different. And I did tell you, I don't remember that. So then I put that disclaimer on that basically says, hey, I'm giving you this and you're accepting. You're like a lawyer. You're accepting it because you're a lazy ass who can't go calibrate his drill on his own. So take what you get. But no, 99% of the time they're good enough. I think you've
that got us in the ballpark where then we can make fine-tuned adjustments to get it down to where we need it to. And we were looking at that drill and reading the book like, oh man, we don't even know where to start with it. So there's things there were great for us just to get us in the ballpark. And like I said, we fine tuned it, and I have notes written next to each one of those different products that we've used that you gave me the setups for. It's like, okay, we need to tweak it a little bit here and there for our machine, and it's worked out great.
Yeah. Which machine do you have?
The Land Pride 606 NT.
Good deal. So for those who have that unit, the Great Plains or Land Pride, and I know, Zach, you listened to this episode. I don't know what episode number it is, but with Dana Trump at Land Pride, giving just pointers and just, setup, et cetera. So that's a good, if you have, or you're going to rent that unit, go back and listen to that. All right. So I heard you talk about some of the products. I know you and I have had a bunch of conversations about this. So we're already at 20 minutes. The maiden voyage of this new segment I was intended to be shorter, but here we go. So which products did you start with? And please tell me, I told you this before, I think you'll agree. If you're a sports fan or a coach and your team's winning all the time, you get excited, right? A good coach isn't necessarily excited because he's like, I need a good ass whooping every time, especially like the younger kids, right? If you're college age, I get it, and older, but younger kids need their ass whooped every now and then and need to get beat so then they can figure out what they're not doing right. So I get these people calling me like, hey, Jason, this stuff is amazing. It grew super well for me in Louisiana, wherever they're at. And I'm always like, that's great. What didn't work? And they're like, man, I don't know. I really don't know what to. I mean, we killed 3 bucks. We killed a mature buck. We killed whatever. So, give me the good, the bad, and the ugly of some of those products and how they. So I know you mentioned like monoculture clover and then brassica plots. We've all been there, done that. Mm-hmm. What did you start with, and what did you notice in comparison from those older plots to the regen plots?
Yep. So I really we started this really before I knew you. We were buying from a co-op just down the road. We were buying Ladino, red clover, crimson clover, whatever. We're just buying whatever clovers they had.
Yep.
They would kind of make their own mix for us. We would tell them, 5 pounds of this and 3 pounds of that. And we would kind of mix our own together. And at first it was great. It came up, it did well. We started playing around, and it was pretty much strictly monoculture. It was just clovers. Mm-hmm. We did throw chicory in there now and then, just never really seemed to get good chicory growth. Mm-hmm. So we just kind of stuck with what we knew. But then, like I said, they weren't getting bright green. They weren't getting, which turns out they weren't getting the nutrients that they needed. And we were heavy lime, heavy fertilizer, herbicides, just everything we could do to make this the best thing we could. And, we're pumping a lot of money into the ground through the whole process.
Yeah. And by the way, all of those inputs have just skyrocketed in the last year. So,
I know.
So I get more and more emails every day and text messages from customers and clients like, man, I'm glad you took us down this rabbit hole 6-7 years ago, because here I am without a pound of synthetic fertilizer, no pesticides, and I'm listening to buddies and farmers complain about increasing costs.
Sorry. Sure.
Go ahead.
No, that's good. So, we did those monocultures, and we played around with some different brands, some other major manufacturers. And then that's when I met you, and Drop-Tine seed. And I used, and I still use it now on some of the plots that, we're not in the regen with yet, is the Full Draw 7. Mm-hmm. Just love that. But I've noticed that you can't do that one year after year and get the same outcome. You really need to mix something else into it. And that's where I'm learning the regen ag part of it.
Yeah. By the way, last night I just finalized the new Full Draw 7. So I'm out at the fall stuff. So the spring stuff's ready. It was brought to my attention that one of our, I don't even like calling them competitors, but Green Cover Seed, who I used to work with, and they handcuffed me big time. I'm starting to realize with product availability, but they're having trouble getting seed. We bought seed early. We bought a lot of seed. I just happen to be in a transportation, freight, trucking, logistics family, which is super helpful right now as everybody else struggles. I've put on a different hat, get a truck, LTL truckload, whatever, and get the seed here. So But Full Draw 7 was finalized last night. It's officially 9 products. You are right. It wasn't the most complementary blend, and it wasn't designed to be the most complementary blend when we designed it. I designed it for a well-known, actually the first time I designed it for a very well-known bow hunter who likes to remain anonymous. He actually lives in Alaska, but he has a farm in Pennsylvania, and he was like, listen, I love these fall plots, but how can we get deer, earlier in the season and then extend this? He's just a bow hunter, refuses to pick up a gun. I don't even think he owns a gun. And we developed Full Draw 7, and it became known as the Bow Blend. Peterson's Bow Hunting did a feature on it, and started to sell really, really well all over the country. But I started looking at it last couple of years thinking, how can I make this better? And we made some tweaks last year and learned a lot from it. And then actually it's 9 products this year. I'm going to keep the name Full Draw 7. It was initially 7 different products. Right. Or species and varieties. But that's cool. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did want to make that comment while we're at it, is finalizing the fall stuff right now. Buying that. Guys are still struggling to buy spring. The supply issues, the logistics, all of that has been a nightmare, but that's a kind of a fun challenge for me, because it's one of the things I enjoy. So anyway, Go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. We went from Full Draw 7. I think we used some fall fuel, but it was all real hunting related. We weren't looking at the big picture for feeding the deer, getting them healthy throughout the year, and actually when they need it most, when they're growing their antlers, for what we're looking for. You're always looking for a big rack walking through the woods. So we went from those monocultures to, the blend, but it was still pretty much, a fall aspect. And that's where we knew we had to make a change. And that's where we switched over. We started spring reload, transitioned into summer reload, and then into fall reload last year. And just those food plots come fall were fantastic. They were what you call dirty plots, partly probably because we didn't necessarily prep our fields properly, or we just
Should I trademark that before somebody steals it?
What's that?
Dirty plots.
I would, but that's my. I'm in that business too.
I was in the intellectual space a lot with the consulting, because it seems like everybody wants to use the word Drop-Tine now.
Yep. The
only guy I haven't chased is the guy who makes whiskey or whatever. I'm like, hey, now that's a damn good idea. I'll leave him alone.
Leave that one alone.
Yeah, but we don't really have any issues with it. But anyway, so you went spring, summer, fall. Yep. And this is where innovation. So I love staying on the cutting edge. And what frustrates me most right now about a lot of this soil health, regen stuff, which is way overused and it's not used accurately, is you can't just start something and then leave it. That's what the public school system does. I'm sure I'll get emails on that one. You've got to innovate. We're not cranking out employees. We're building entrepreneurs, right? So with these products, because actually Gabe and I first had this conversation, Gabe Brown, about how can he was like, Jason, nobody has ever gone into the wildlife space with the soil health regen, so I don't know what to tell you. There's nobody to point you to. Gabe knows everybody. If you need help in this space for whatever, he can point you that way. And we started with one blend. And again, it was, what species can I get that are complementary, that deer also love, and that do a good job at sequestering certain nutrients that we want to put into those antlers you mentioned going through the woods. And we kind of started with, and I was like, you know what, Gabe, this isn't making sense to have one product. I can't cover the cool season and the warm season, cool season spring, cool season fall, and then also, I work with clients. I'll be in East Texas this year. I work with clients in the upper mid, all over the country, everywhere you can legally hunt whitetails. So I have to be, malleable and switch it up quickly based on those regional, specifics. So when we went spring, summer, fall, my goal was I knew we were going into completely destroyed and dysfunctional systems, right? Like yours, like mine. Yep. That had been plowed, and you mentioned the over-fertilization and the chemicals, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So my goal was to prime the hell out of the biology. Biology is resilient. If there's one thing that I have learned from Dr. Rick Haney and partnering with him on the ST1, which is a infield soil health tool, is that biology can take a beating and come back quickly. That's good news. It's, for those of us who were taught that it takes 1,000 years to build 1% soil organic matter, that's just some nonsensical academician sitting in a university somewhere who never gets out of his office. So sorry, I had to stick that in there too. You should see the emails I get. Sometimes I should just read them. It's rather entertaining. My family gets a kick out of it. Some of my closer clients, I'll forward them on. People get pretty cranked up on this stuff. But yeah. So we go spring, summer, fall. I was like, listen, I'm not looking to necessarily reach physiological maturity on any of these plants, but I want to get plant roots back in the ground, right?
Yep.
So as you see other companies trying to mimic, Green Cover started doing this. They took my spring, summer, fall and started to mimic it, and they were like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't working. And we laughed because we were like, that's because you're 3 years behind. We're way ahead of this. That was a great idea in some applications, and I still recommend. I just recommended it the other day to a client in Tennessee who's in that sweet spot where he'll see a huge return on that investment. But there's some clients who or customers who don't. They won't benefit from that, and maybe it doesn't even fit in the budget, which is a huge consideration.
Yep.
But you did it, and what did you see?
Well, I mean, our spring planting, we were a little concerned. We didn't get the growth, we didn't get the plant count that we would hope.
All right, did you fertilize at that spring planting? No.
Nope. And
so
they were at a disadvantage from the start. They were already in poor soil, and we were just gonna cold turkey cut it and go with it.
All right, let me shift that. Think that. Yeah. So a lot of people said to me, Jason, in that regenerative soil health space, they were like, I get what you're trying to do, but you need to wean these people off because they're going to quit and give up. And I was like, I'm different than that. If I innovate and I lead, I don't want everybody to come. In fact, the more popular articles I see in like Gamekeeper that are completely wrong but stolen material, the more likely I am to keep going further and get out of this space and go on to the next, because it's no fun having everybody in camp. Everybody who hunts gets that. There's always that one or two guys you wish weren't there.
Yeah.
This was so much more exciting when it was just a handful of us, and the rest of them were laughing on Facebook, calling us organic food plotters.
Yep.
So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So. Well, I'll let you continue. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, the first spring reload, we were really concerned, but we stayed the course, stayed the path. Went into summer, and summer was much better. We saw some good growth. We saw some changeover, but we still were having weed issues, and we have that soil seed bank in our soil that we're just trying to chew up as well.
All right, that's about a 3-hour podcast right there.
Yeah, I know. Let's skip over that one.
That description was perfect, but I want to back up. So this is what you see and hear with people who want to call it, trademark it, claim the intellectual property. It's nature's system. So let's sit back and go, okay, what happened? If you don't understand what happened with that first spring reload, and I disagree, it was not put at a disadvantage. It was put in its environment where it could thrive. So a lot of these guys said to me, you're gonna lose your business. People are gonna stop buying it because they're gonna go all in. They're not gonna have buy-in. This is ridiculous. And I said, the people who quit, we truly don't want them in this space anyway. They'll figure it out eventually, 7 years later probably. But why didn't spring reload thrive? It didn't thrive. I mean, you could have fertilized it. It probably would have done better. It's a synthetic system, like a golf course. It was dependent upon you spoon feeding it synthetic fertilizer, right?
Right.
But what you got to understand is, going back to that biology is resilient. You put fertilizer in the ground, you just don't know it. Your fertilizer was in a seed bag. So when those seeds germinated, those roots did their thing. The area in and around that root zone is called the rhizosphere. There was so much chemistry, nature's chemistry, going on in that area between the microbes and the plant roots, product of photosynthesis, that you were fertilizing that field, and it's almost like taking a factory where you're trying to build, I'm just throwing numbers out there because I'm an idiot, but 100,000 wasp sharpshooters, and you have 2 dudes in there who are checking Facebook all day, and then all of a sudden you go out there and you hire 100 dudes. Now it's like, okay, this system's cranking, we're productive, we can afford to take breaks and still be productive. So when you put those plant roots in the ground, you primed, you did what nature wanted. First of all, you changed up your routine, right? Yep. Also called diverse rotations to our founding fathers who got this, by the way. And you primed the biology. I remember you sent me those pictures, and everybody else sends me pictures. They're like, dude, this looks terrible. I got to fertilize. I have too many weeds. What you do doesn't work here. And I laugh, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. You should quit. Actually, 50% of the time, I'm really hoping they quit, right? Yeah. But the ones who persist are the ones who are a blast to have on this side of on the right side of history, as I call it. So now, because you planted a well thought out, well developed blend, right? That attempted to mimic nature as close as possible, which is kind of what I enjoyed doing. So a lot of people enjoy writing up plays on I watched a basketball coach the other night drawing I know nothing about basketball. Nothing. I think it should be a contact sport, so I don't belong on the court. It should be more physical. And I'm watching this guy draw up plays, and I'm like, what could a basketball coach possibly draw on a dry erase board, right? But for me, the dry erase board is, spring peas and spring oats and trit, barley, kale, turnips, camelina, whatever. Okay, how can we make this complementary? So what you saw that first year was a shock.
Yep.
But you're priming it, and you're getting there so much faster than the weaners. If anybody listened to that podcast with me and Dr. Haney, Rick Haney, I think it might have been the last one. He said to me one time, "Don't be a wiener," and we're always looking for new shirt ideas.
That's perfect.
His terminology is plants fix dirt, and I made shirts that said that. But he's like, "Nah, I don't. Why would you want to wean that system?" That tells me, coming from Rick's mouth, that they don't understand how the system works. That's kind of like, like beating your wife only on the weekends and giving her the week off. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Oh, yeah, and that's definitely what we saw. It's not that we didn't have plants growing. You could see, the 7-inch rows. You could see plants coming, but they were just getting overrun by weeds. But you're right. It was priming everything. It was getting things moving, getting things adjusted. Really, is what it was. Getting the soil adjusted.
That's right, and the life in the soil adjusted. So,
yep.
When you look at these multi-species blends, people think, like right now I saw there's another guy who's starting to sell more diversity and selling it as diversity. Well, why are we again, this goes back to the why. Are we just, like, I have to source, I'm looking at the 2022 version spreadsheet of Spring Reload on my desktop right now because, I don't know, it's what I do. I look at it all day trying to figure out what it's lacking. Why do we have, certain species flax, right? Why is flax in there? Why is buckwheat in there? Why is sunflower, phacelia, whatever? And there's so much that goes into trying to, not just the carbon nitrogen ratio, but I change it every year, right? So when companies look at the seed tag and they go, hey, we're going to make this, that's fine. But we change it every year. Even though we have 17 or 18 different species, or 15 for that matter, we're still going to change it every year because we want to keep confusing nature, right? We want to shock it and give it that chain, those rotations. So you're going from spring to summer and you're starting to notice, obviously the weeds are, the quote unquote weeds are coming on. I welcome that stuff. I think that stuff's awesome. And the reason I'm not some tree hugger who's like, a weed is a beautiful plant, let's leave it. No, they used to piss me off and they still piss me off. I just told you the story about my daughter's Aussie, which actually goes back to, a plant that produces a seed that I hate so much I can't even say it. That's stuck all over his rear end, causing basically fecal compaction. And he decided at midnight to run in the house last night and sit down with a complete mess on his rear end. So I hate weeds, but to me, it's like a street sign, right? I know I'm going west, or well, for me, usually south. I'm headed to Florida. I'm not, if I see a street sign, it's going to either, tell me I'm going in the right direction or the wrong direction. If you know how to read nature, that's what weeds are. So, okay, I just wanted to mention that you were priming the biology. You stuck with it. You didn't give up. Summer reload was better.
Yeah, summer reload was better, much better. Saw the plants really shooting up, and then fall really took off. We had a full green field. It was green very late into the season.
Did you fertilize at all? From fertilizer to pesticides, herbicides?
Nope, we didn't do anything other than mow, and mow or roll crimp, depending on. It was really kind of spot mow. A couple places that we just didn't feel like got a good roll crimp while we were trying to get the next phase done. So yeah, no pesticides, no fertilizer. We stayed away from all of that. Just tried to do it all within nature's plan here. Try to do it all the same.
Yeah. No wieners in the Weaver camp.
No. Yeah. Well, I guess a little bit because we didn't go every single food plot that way. But it was more we wanted to learn the equipment.
No,
learn
that's
everything.
different. That's totally different. I'm talking to a place now. It's 14,000 acres. We're looking at 750 acres of food plots, and this is big. And I'm trying to say, no, slow down. I would rather you take even 100 acres and start there, and learn all in on 100 and then repeat process. So
sure, because we're going to have to adapt to our smaller fields because a lot of our equipment can't get in there. So we'll have to make some more purchases and things like that when we go down that road, which is probably another year away. We'll probably go this year, and then we'll start transitioning the rest of the property over to it. But anyway, back to fall reload. I can't say enough about it. We had all kinds of growth. Really saw in our observation cages the growth of diversity, but it was getting pounded, by deer. I mean, it was nothing in a 4-acre field that we sit in all the time, and really we save it for my kids to hunt because it gets so many deer, and it just keeps them interested in it. And I mean, they were just destroying it as fast as it would grow, but it never stopped growing. It just kept coming. Right up till the first snow flew, it was still green and growing.
So now at that, by fall, you have the biology is thriving. It's cranking. Biology is resilient. We've been abusing it for 100 plus years.
Yep.
And I developed the fall reload first, and then everything that was sort of like the destination, right? So, then we developed everything ahead of it. If we're not going to fertilize with synthetics and we're going to prime the biology, here's what we're going to do in the spring, here's what we're going to do in the summer, or the transitional periods, depending on where you're at in the country. So, well, cool. That's good. Yeah.
And I mean, that field there, it'll always have a spot for me because my son shot his first buck there.
Yep. There you go.
That made everything worthwhile. That's what it's all about. We had, 6 or 7 different buck to pick from that evening. And he finally was like, okay, that's the one. And he knew which one he wanted, and that was fine. That was great. He shot a nice buck, not a mature buck, could have been a little older, but hey, it didn't matter to me.
Right. All right.
But,
good deal.
Yeah.
So where are you going now, going into 2022? And this is really what our conversation normally is this time of year is what are the plans for this year?
I mean, we are expanding to one additional field, another one that we can get into fairly easy. But we're really going to try to stay the course with the running the 3 different systems, the 3 different seeds, spring, summer, and fall reload. That's.
Can I stop you? Can I stop you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I like that. I think you should do that on 1 or 2 or what, a certain percentage of your plots, because then you know what what the difference is between the management on each one. But one of the things that people need to realize is products should always be dynamic. I don't care if you buy them from the co-op or Drop-Tine or whoever. They should not be static. They should not remain the same. Your management, so whether you're, whatever you're doing from a management standpoint should, when you plant, what you plant, how you plant, should never stay the same. You should plan purposeful disruptions. Okay, so nature's that way. I get clients they're complaining about the drought last year. We just paid a boatload more for seed because there's drought, in Oregon and the Dakotas and Texas, etc. You've got to disrupt and constantly. Nature will pattern you like a 5.5-year-old buck if you don't. So last year you did something by disrupting those plots where you went spring, summer, fall, right?
Yep.
This year you've got to do something different on at least some of that acreage to see what kind of response you get. So now you planted fall reload. I don't remember. Did you plant fall nourishment at all?
No.
And we didn't plant any other custom fall blends that will come back this spring.
No.
Correct? Okay, fall reload, one of the major goals of fall reload was to then have enough species come back the following spring.
Okay.
To continue to feed the biology. Now, sometimes that's not enough density to necessarily smother the weeds as a smother crop or, completely fill in. Sometimes it is. Sometimes nature throws a winter that it doesn't come back like we want it. So that's why spring reload actually, it's interesting. People think it was developed spring, summer, fall in that order. It was developed fall, then spring, then summer, because if you're thinking you may not have a great stand, a really dense stand. Part of the problem, and I hate saying this as a seed guy, but if you want to get ahead of the curve, I just had a conversation with a friend in the agricultural space, cover cropping last night. He thinks I'm crazy, but I started listening to Jeff Moyer from the Rodale Institute early about planting heavier. And if you want to smother out and outcompete weeds, you've got to plant heavier. You've got to. So when those fall reload plots, ideally, they would come back and they'd be super thick. You could roll them down with your crimper and drill in whatever you want to drill in. Even if it's in May, June, you could drill in a warm season of whatever you want. But if we were to build fall reload to do that, we wouldn't have the diversity and the structure that we had to attract whitetails, right? So this was the original balance between, oh gosh, I'd really like to make it a monoculture cereal rye plot like the organic soybean farmers do, where they get, 150 to 200 pounds of cereal rye. I know if anybody's an ag guy, they're going, what? That's crazy. And then they're coming in and they're, planting soybeans into it green and then rolling it down 2, 3, 4 weeks later, at anthesis. So they're planting at boot stage, crimping at anthesis. I get it. We've done it. It works great. But we can't do that, right? Because when a lot of my clients started this, they're like, listen, Jay, I'm good with this. I want to go this route. I want to get away from synthetics and chemicals, et cetera. But listen, man, we still want to kill deer. That's like the primary objective.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So fall reload was first of all, we got to keep killing deer. Okay. That's one. Second of all, we've got to address soil health. We've got to feed the microbes, et cetera. So, there's no way to predict how well those fall reload plots will come back. If you planted them early, great. They probably got established before winter. If the deer hit them, great. Yeah. But maybe not so great, right? Maybe they're stressed. Right. And so initially when I started this, now my barn's full of seed, typically for me. So even where I knew I planted fall reload, I'd go in there, 43, whatever. After the frost was clear, 45-degree soil temps and rising, and I'd put spring reload in anyway, because I'm trying to get there as quick as I can and prime the crap out of the soil and go.
Yeah.
So I think, you could go in with a spring reload in some of these plots and get started because you get ahead of that weed profile when you start early, right?
Yep.
That's the smother crop portion of it. That's why starting in the fall is so great, because those plants are root active, practically all winter. The cereal rye, the hairy vetches, the peas, all that stuff comes earlier in the spring, and you get ahead of those weeds. But In some spots, I would take and put a short-term cover crop. We have oats and peas.
Yep.
For a client in Wisconsin. He doesn't know it yet, but he emailed me last night. He's got a 14-acre cornfield that he plants. We're going to actually go in with a short-term cover crop early. He didn't get a chance to fly in any covers or plant covers in the fall. So we're going to go in early, 43. Again, frost is out, 43, 45 and rising. And we're going to put in that short term. It's going to be oats, peas, and probably buckwheat for him.
Okay.
And that's going to be a 60 to 65-ish, maybe a little longer day sort of cover crop, short interim period. He's going to roller crimp that, plant his corn right into it, and then we'll probably interseed a custom blend into the corn at like V3, V4. But that's neither here nor there. So what I would do if I were you on some stuff that I want to throw a curveball at nature, I put the short-term cover crop in. That's going to give you excellent ground cover. It's going to feed the microbes early, and then you can roller crimp terminate that and go with a summer product. It could be, summer reload. For me this year, after seeing what we've done with summer squash, especially on the really poor soils, the degraded soils, which most of us have, I'm going summer squash, but I'm going to spend the summer building that plant, the root structure, the biomass, feeding the microbes. Grass is fixed dirt better than any species, period. I get legumes do their job, but the root structure of grass is hard to beat.
Okay.
And then I would roll that down in the fall and plant fall reload or a similar fall product, full draw 7, something along those lines. So I'm just throwing that out to you as you plan your plots, is to try not to get too, that I made this mistake. I was like, listen, I'm going spring, summer, fall, and I'm going to do this for 5 years. No, wrong answer. After the second year, I sat out there looking at a weed profile that changed ever so slightly, but I really wasn't able to get ahead of it. And that's when I realized you're not reading nature, man. You've got to throw it more curveballs.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we were on the spring, summer, fall.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that
as well. Sure.
But
it makes total sense there to mix it up.
Your spring reload this year is going to look different. It's a different species profile than last year. Still, multiple species. I had 18. I took it out. I have 17 now. So it's going to still look different, but I don't like the planting. The planting time, the duration is the same. Essentially, it's the same. I'd rather go in there with something different, shake it up. And what we saw with summer reload, Wisconsin, South Carolina, sandy soils, as most of you should know, geographically, not close together at all, but very similar problems in that, like on the Piedmont, for instance, where I enjoy working, used to be cotton. It was cleared for cotton. The A horizon's gone. There's no A horizon left. And we have to bring back that soil. You're dealing with, I had property in Allegheny County, a really nice farm in Allegheny County, not far from you. Sold it a few years ago, but we didn't have any problem growing stuff up there. But if I could do this now, it would have been a game changer. And, it would be a totally different story. So change it up. Summer squash, I think, it gets squatchy. The Sasquatch habitat, for those who don't know what squatchy means. And that's crediting Adam Doherty, who came up with all that good stuff on Squatch habitat. That's what I would do, because and I'm going to push this more in South Carolina this year. You're building, 15, 16, 17 foot tall squatch, and you're rolling that over. It's like a jungle.
Oh yeah.
And you're feeding the microbes, you're covering the soil, you're maintaining moisture. It's a win-win all around.
That definitely sounds like a plan for us
Here
to
we
make
are
change to.
at 54 minutes. I was like, yeah, Zach, these will be like 30 minutes. And
they never are.
So what else? What else? Does that make sense though? I think just to, try to change it up. So if one plot, 1 year you were, heavy on the spring, maybe try to get in the fall, try to get a really good stand that's going to come back for you. And if you get a 50% coverage on your fall reload plots, meaning, it doesn't come back quite like we want it to and smother crop density,
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with going in there with spring reload. It's what I do. It's what most of my clients do. Drill it anyway. Spring reload is going to come up with the stuff that comes back from last fall, and it's just going to be a big, nasty, diverse mess of goodness.
Yep. Yep, for sure. Sorry, I'm taking notes too.
Yeah, no worries. Listen, this is being recorded. I'm not sure if you know that, so I'll replay this. But those, leading into the fall, when you go at it with that much diversity, it's funny because then I'll tell a client, I'll be, you know what? Based on where this plot is, what your goal is, put that in old school fall fuel. And they're like, look at me like that. They look at me like I looked at my son's doctor the other day who started to Google something to explain it to us. And I was like, whoa, hold on a minute. You're getting on Google, Doc? I mean, you kidding me? Like, you always tell us not to Google stuff, and here you are getting on Google. And it just happened to be the same thing I had showed him earlier that day. At any rate, they're like, wait, we're going back to monoculture? Like fall fuel is it's all brassicas, 100% brassicas for the most part. But you've just hammered the soil all summer long. You've earned it. Not only that, this is a diverse rotation. You're throwing something different at it. And recall, the goal was to kill deer. And there's not a whole lot that kills deer better than fall fuel. So you get all that diversity going all year. There's nothing wrong with throwing a fall fuel or a full draw 7 at it in the fall if it's a hunting plot.
Yeah, definitely. And then come back with a spring.
That's right. Exactly. And as most know, if you've ever driven in the country, you smell the brassicas in the fall. I love that smell. To me, it's fumigating the snot out of the soil. Right. You have guys like Kroll and those guys who they don't sell, they have an interest in something else, talking about, these are really bad for the soil, and anything repetitively is bad for the soil, especially James Kroll. So if you fumigate the snot out of it, you go into spring, it may not look ideal because it's not coming back, right? It's not a biennial type, cereal rye, hairy vetch, whatever. But yeah, you're right. You go into the spring early, super cool temps. Don't wait till the first weekend of turkey season. That calendar planning stuff is killing me. We got to get people out of that.
I got to get it done early. I got to get done early. I got youth baseball coming in, so we try to get it hammered out as early as we can. We watch the soil temperature pretty hard.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in the same boat with softball. Perfect. What else?
I don't know. I don't know what else we got.
Are you soil testing at all? I probably shouldn't have gone down this rabbit hole. As we approach an hour.
Not like we should. Not like we should. The plan for this year was I really wanted to do a spring and then a fall. And I wanted to do the Haney test on both of them, and Haney test didn't happen at all.
Yeah.
Just one of those things that we dug samples and then they sat there and never got set out for testing. It was just got put in a box, got put in the barn and forgotten about.
Yeah.
So this year it actually did get missed.
Well, it's okay. It's not a big deal. That's one of the things, I can't wait for the day when I open up, and I don't really read like Gamekeepers anymore. I used to think that was a great magazine, and it can be interesting, but I can't wait till the day somebody sends me a popular article that says, you know what? The first step is not to get a soil test. Screw the soil test. It's useless.
Sure.
Just go out in nature with a shovel and dig a damn hole. And then when you're done, do what our founding fathers did and plant a seed. That's how you make soil better. So, it's like, all right, I should have tested. Well, should we? You watch the news now, they're talking about testing for a virus. Well, I'm here to tell you, I don't care what side of this whole thing you're on. I'm not getting political. I enjoy that. But as we sit here, you and I, we have viruses in our bodies. So if they develop a test to test a certain virus in our body and tell us how bad it is, that'll work to scare the hell out of people.
Yep.
So if you take a test of a soil, my question is, great, looks great. A, what the hell does it mean to you? And B, what are you going to do management-wise that's different than what you did last time? If you can't answer either of those, then don't test. Now, a lot of guys say, well, I want baseline because I kind of like doing what you're doing and telling people, here's what I've done with my organic matter. Here's what I've done with my soil health calculation. Here's what I've done with my CO2 burst. Here's what I blah, 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 along the line, right? I get that.
Sure.
It's kind of like weighing yourself before, some big nutritional, I hate the word diet, but you get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of what the thought was, is we wanted to get it for a baseline, and then we were really going to see, I know environmental changes happen from spring to fall and things like that. Just wanted to see what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then check it again in the spring, kind of get that full year's look at it.
I would probably, if I were you, I would test the plots this year that have a year under them. So pick a time in the, reasonable spring after snow melt, relatively, I don't want to say dry, but it's drying out. Things are good.
Sure.
And stick with that testing time every year. Don't change it up. And then test some of those plots that are not, have not been in the regen soil health method.
Yep.
And just compare those two. They're going to be very, very similar on what we're looking at, which is life in the soil, PLFA, and we can be in touch on all this stuff later. But so I just think too many people, I honestly don't soil test that much anymore.
Okay.
I'm throwing plants at the dirt because I know that's what it needs. And I'm sure this will come up again with other customers, seed customers and prospective customers that I do in the future. I've got like 3 of these scheduled already. Louisiana and Pennsylvania and other parts, Carolinas, Texas. The conventional, if you're going down the soil health regenerative path, the conventional soil test is 98.5% of the time completely useless, right? Because it was designed, I know you know this, but I'll throw it out there for the listeners. If you want 30 minutes of a podcast, by the way, you can hit stop at 30 minutes. If not, you can keep listening. But if you're, the conventional Malic 3 or whatever was designed to have an end result of put this much chemical in your ground, right? That's why it cracks me up that nobody ever asks themselves, why is my chemical guy, my co-op, my crop consultant, why are they offering to do these soil tests for free? Right? It's because they're going to recommend a boatload of synthetics that they're going to make money on. So if you're going to dump synthetic chemicals, fertilizers in your field, then that's fine. Go to your local co-op, spend $5, $9, whatever they cost now, $20, and get that test. But if you're looking to farm in nature's image with biology, then the Haney test and the PLFA are the only 2 that look at biology, period. So that I'm off my soapbox now. I just want to throw that out. I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, but and again, sometimes it's fun to get them. I get it. A friend of mine is a pretty good sized farmer in Indiana, and he always busts me. He's like, "Do you have a soil test?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got a Haney test." He's like, "No, I want a conventional test." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's good for you. I'm not going to go out there and dump synthetics." And honestly, he's like, "I know, I get it, but Haney doesn't show this." And I'm like, "Yeah, actually it does. If you know what you're looking at, it does. But the way that they show it, it was extracted using chemicals that do not exist in nature. So it's not exactly what I'm looking at in my soil. It's what I'm looking at in my soil in the lab. And that doesn't interest me."
Yeah.
All right. What else?
I think that's it.
I know you had questions. I talk too much, but
and that's the great thing is a lot of times my questions get answered just by listening to you. Just let you go.
Yeah, and these calls go on all day long this time of year with me, and my family's like, "Do you ever get off the phone and stop saying the same shit over and over again?" I'm like, "No, because this is what education is about. It's about learning the system. The biggest shift for this happens between the ears. It's not, oh, I need a drill. I love it when people call me, I don't have a drill like you. Okay. Nowhere in the principles of soil health will you find, go spend 30 grand on a drill. It's not in there.
Right. You can broadcast.
Absolutely.
We've done that. We've just top seeded straight into stands and have had some success with that. The biggest thing is the food plots that we had that wouldn't crimp real well.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, mow them nice and low, just like them getting grazed off.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like they're getting grazed off, and replant that stuff there just is invaluable. And that's the things I'm sure people are thinking about is, okay, well, what happens if this doesn't work? And that's where, fortunately I have your cell phone number. I'll shoot you a quick text and get an answer quick.
Not always quick, but yeah.
Yeah. Reasonable. It's good. It's
that's a function of how much I like you.
Well, that's a good thing.
I'm gonna catch hell for that. No, I try. Like the emails that I get, it's overwhelming, and I try to answer as many as I can. Sure. And when I do, the response is usually super cool. People appreciate it, but I do have obviously clients who I have to take care of first, and some of them get pissed because I don't get to them as quickly as I want to. But some of them I sit here and stew over, like this 14 acres in Wisconsin that we've been trying to bring back. It's a struggle, but we're going to win it. We're trying to read what's going on, and I think this year we'll get a grip on it. So that's cool. Maybe what we'll do then is have you back, start to do that with some of these guests, have them back at a later date, year 2, 3 years, whatever. Talking about more of these transitions.
Sure. Well, learning this stuff from you, like, my question is, what's next? What is the next thing we should be looking down the road at? We touched on it already. Like, well, let's not stay with spring, summer, and fall reload. Let's mix it up. Let's throw monoculture in there. Let's throw summer squash in there. Those are the things those were my questions. Okay, what's next? What's the next direction we need to be looking to plan ahead? Mm-hmm. We have our goal, and it's really pretty simple: growing mature deer, and it's not even for myself; it's for my kids. Yep. We're trying to make things a little bit more affordable for them, because who knows what's going to happen down the road. So we're just trying to do everything to make it as sustainable as possible for future. Mm-hmm. On all resource sides, whether it be the deer, the entertainment, the whole thing, the monetary part of it. So, that's where, I don't have the time for learning, and that's to learn the next steps. And that's why a lot of my questions that we've already answered, and you've answered just by going down, just
rambling,
rambling. Yeah. Rambling. Yeah. You just ramble through it.
One guy said to me, do more fireside chats with just customers, like, just plain old customers. I was like, this is usually what fireside chats sound like at my fire pit. That's why my family sort of leaves, because they're like, oh my God, here we go again.
We're at it again.
But we are. I enjoy. One of my clients nailed this past fall. We were just talking about life, and he's going to know who he is when he hears this. But he's like, one of the things I learned about you over the last 19 years or whatever is you thrive in when people laugh and when you're going the opposite direction. And I said, yeah, I mean, who wants to be in the herd? I don't want to be in the herd. You get stepped on and it's, everything looks the same and you're staring at a bunch of asses. And he's like, but the other thing is, once the herd starts to get to where you're at, you're automatically looking or, already in another space. And that's how I look at this regenerative soil health stuff. We started first. Well, I said we started second behind nature. Thanks to guys like Gabe and Rick Haney and Ray Archuleta and those guys, we got a good start. But to me, innovation is where it's at. And when Rick and I started working on the soil health tool, the question was, okay, so we're doing soil health, we're doing regen ag. How do we know if we're making progress and when we get there? How do we know, like, to the holy grail? And, that's when we were like, well, it's all about biology, right? So we're using that tool to study our management. We have a competitive advantage, in my opinion, because we can listen to the heartbeat of the soil with this tool instantly. I mean, it less than 30 seconds now, it's less than 5 seconds. We can leave our tubes in the ground, wait till a rain and a CO2 flush, and go, all right, it's been a cheat for me. I got my CO2 levels over 10,000 to the point that we had to get the manufacturer to get us a more robust CO2 sensor when conventional farmers around me are in the 1,100, 1,200, maybe 1,600 in the active growing season, we're blowing through 10,000 parts per million CO2 in 30 seconds. So that tells us that we're doing the right thing. And I think moving forward this year, I want to get more summer squash in the ground based on what we saw last year. Cool?
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, 30 minutes, Zach. It's been an hour plus.
I know.
I
think we're both pretty long-winded.
Yeah, no, I think it's all good stuff, and I think this is what the listeners are wanting. I apologize for not doing enough of these. I've been sourcing seeds. If the growing season went year-round, I'd be hosed. When it finally slows down in December, it's great because then we have to, start to obviously buy seed and get it in and get ready to do our thing. So anyway, just for those listening, everything is ready. For the folks who ordered pollinator preserve early in like January or December, thank you for thinking ahead. I did make tweaks and I'm finishing up those tweaks. It has nothing to do with seed availability. It's just me and my over analytical ways trying to make sure we have the right things in there for this year. So good deal. What else, Zach?
I think that's it. I appreciate this.
No, I appreciate you. And like I said, we'll do it again. We'll cut it off there at a little over an hour for the first episode. I'm going to do more of these. We're going to bounce all over the country and deal with some regional differences. So we started with New York, and we'll work our way around the country. Zach, hang around with me here after the podcast. I want to mention something to you, but appreciate everything, and have a great day.
All right. Thanks, you too.
Yes, sir.